with here, and then we'll get ready to go racing for this 50-minute race. Again, following the same format. If you just joined us for the first race for the Huracán AM and Gallardo drivers, 50-minute race. You got the pit window. You earn the points. When we do it again tomorrow, same story. Go through it all, tally up the points, and that will determine our World Finals champion. What I love is we don't just get to call one of these for each of these two combined groups. We get to call two. Doesn't get much better than that. Except for this time, I get to be joined by Spencer Pompelli. Spencer, welcome back. Thank you so much for coming and helping out. And interesting race that we just saw unfold here. Again, that caution that really kind of jumbled up strategies just a little bit. And then a great charge from the back. Not just in that overall battle, but, again, Josh Hurley in the Gallardo, third overall. Just some remarkable racing we saw. And now it's the guys that are supposedly even faster.
Yeah, this World Final definitely lived up to its expectations. A fantastic race we just witnessed. Josh and Jim Norman, of course, starting in the back of the field after a penalty and qualifying. The two taking it all the way to the front and having it decided by some contact in the last lap. And ultimately, it was in the officials' hands. But boy, up to that point, we just saw every little bit of action. And hopefully, this race with a couple more cars in the field and the A drivers, so to say, this is going to be a fantastic event. It's going to be a challenge between the guys from Europe, the guys from Asia, and the homegrown stars here with supposed track knowledge and a little bit of a home field advantage, the American teams who called this place home.
Absolutely. And I think, well, before we get into that, just talking about what we just saw unfold, Josh turning a very fast lap. He's a very talented young driver that's coming on. Jim, to me, was the star of that. When coming from dead last, moving as far up as he did before he pitted, that was stellar. I think that's some of the best driving I've ever seen Jim do.
Yeah, for sure. It's tough to pass in these fast cars, especially the ones that rely on downforce. You tuck up behind another car and you lose a lot of the grip you had. So Jim coming from the back of the field through the Gallardos and then through most of the M cars to give it to Josh, and I think he brought it all the way up to 7th before he pitted. Just a great job there by both of those guys, and we saw some good runs from a lot of the different cars in the field. It was competitive there all the way up to the end. So, hopefully this will be just as exciting. There are actually more cars in this field, and I think the qualifying times are tighter in this group. So I expect all of that and more as we show up here today for the second round.
Well, and that's the thing, tighter. And, we had seen a couple of the drivers, Richard Antonucci most notably, for the season races for the three different classes, getting into the sub-201s a little bit. I think Antonucci had a lap that was 111.5 something average mile per hour for the pole for one of the races, fast lap we'd seen. Patrick Niederhauser turns a 2:01. That's an average speed over 112 miles an hour. That's a new track record for these cars here in qualifying for this race. That's that gold car that's to the right of your screen, folks. Then we'll have the inside going into turn one. Wicked quick lap.
Unbelievably fast. I remember racing this 12 hours of Sebring only a couple of years ago, and our GT cars were doing 8s. A 9 in the race was a fast lap, and now these cars, these Lamborghini, Huracans, are just unbelievably fast around here. They're doing times that are close to the GTLM times around here as we went as they came around last time. So anyway, this is just phenomenal.
As the grid continues to form here, getting ready to go. Again, for those of you that are here at the track, you just enjoyed, I believe, some of the podium ceremonies, joining us here on our web call now as we are feeding the house now, as they say. And again, Giulio Rizzo doing a great job, the interviews for us on our web feed, and also conducting the ceremonies and podium ceremonies. So just a wonderful job by Giulio. So thank you to Giulio Rizzo. And now we get ready to go in this one. Yeah, we've seen that, what you're talking about. When you get to tracks, when these cars run the same track that the GT Le Mans cars, or for that matter, the World Endurance Championship GTE Pro, actually the same thing. We've seen some of these guys turning lap times that would put them in the top 2 rows of those. This is just unbelievably fast.
Yeah, these are unbelievably fast GT cars. A lot of horsepower, kind of unrestricted aerodynamics. The car is designed to race against itself, so you can kind of get away with doing some crazy things like not restricting them, having those huge V8 engines just rumble all the way to the red line and not have to worry about rev capping or restrictors. And then aero is basically wide open too.
Look at the wings on those Huracans.
Huge wings, huge under trays. They make a lot of downforce, not just from the wing and the splitter, but underneath the car and through some of the venting. And when you add it all together, big motor, lots of grip, Pirelli P0 tires, which work really well around here. Despite the bumps here, these things are very, very fast.
Yeah, you put some good drivers on board, and we're seeing what you can extract out of that. So actually, the Huracán, which is the platform for the GT3 car that races in Blancpain endurance in Europe and races in GT Daytona here, they have to detune them a little bit to meet those regs. So effective are these cars in this form. It's really pretty amazing. So there's a good look there. Drivers getting ready to go. That is our pole sitter, I believe, Patrick Niederhauser, and. Boy, what a talent. It boggles the mind a little bit to me when you think that Patrick Niederhauser, I think, ended up 7th in the European Championship when you see the speed that he's showing here this weekend. For some reason, I think the Raton Racing team and he have just got a setup on that car for this track. It's been an immense challenge. Talking to some of the drivers this morning, they said this is the first track we've actually now, some of us have gone like football mouth guards, because we're getting bounced around so much in the cars, and it's figuring out the line where the bumps are least bad in those sections, and then getting a setup on the car that gives you that compromise, right? Because you need it to be compliant over the bumps, but you can't have it too compliant where you're slapping the car on the bottom of the track. And the fast transition stuff, you still need a semi-stiff platform. It's got to be either an engineer's challenge delight or hair-pulling experience.
Yeah. You made a good point. In racing, we're always trying to find the largest arc through the corner, and that tends to be the racing line. However, at Sebring, a lot of times you don't care about your radius or your arc and how big of a curve you can take. You're just simply going where the bumps are the least bad.
Yeah.
Not where there aren't any bumps, simply just where the bumps that are there aren't quite so bad. And then from an engineering standpoint, you always want the car to be low to the ground, and that's the way it has the best grip. But when you hit these bumps, the car will bottom out. And especially when you start running softer springs to allow the car to comply, if you don't raise the car up, you're going to be bouncing it off the racetrack. And if you think the bumps are bad, and when you hit the bottom on the racetrack, you have absolutely no grip at all. So it has got to be, these engineers have to be pulling their hair out. But a couple of these guys have figured it out so quickly.
Well, that's what I noticed in this last race. I noticed that some of the cars that we had seen earlier that were just all over the place, superb over these bumps now. So the crews have really been tweaking on these setups.
Yeah, a lot of these teams have never been, to the States. They've never raced over here, and it's notoriously bumpy in the U.S. And then coming to our bumpiest track, so the bumpiest of the bumpies, they come here with just 2-3 days of track time. Yeah, and having never been here, and get these cars working well enough to put the type of times that we're seeing here. It's just they've done an amazing job. And to be honest, I thought it'd be a much more of a struggle for some of these teams coming over here. But I guess maybe they had some recon. Maybe they sent a couple teams over early to do some testing that we didn't know about. Maybe they watched the in-car video and saw the drivers' heads banging off the roll bars and thought,
they've certainly
maybe
done
this is legit.
Their prep, haven't they, in terms of getting ready. And the last thing, talking about the either ride height when you raise the ride height or when you bump and bounce up in the air, when you've got that underbody downforce, you spill the air out from underneath the car, you lose that grip as well. So it just sort of dominoes, doesn't it?
Yeah, and there are some parts of this track, Bishop's Bend is a good example, where you do need some downforce, and it's very smooth, so you want to run the thing low and stiff, but unfortunately you just can't get around all the corners here. And the two corners here that are the worst, turn 1 and turn 17, these are the two areas where they still use the old airport tarmac. As you can see in the foreground here of this video, for those of you guys that are able to watch the TV, these squares have been laid down to support the heavy weight of B-17 bombers, and they've been here for 60-plus years.
Exactly.
And over time, as it gets hot and cold and things get old, they just move around, and the seams can be really brutal.
Yeah, just driving down the straight, the cars bounce and move a little bit, let alone under load. And the bumps especially right where you you can see them right there where they're exiting turn 1. Fast corner, narrows up. If it goes wrong there, not a lot of runoff. It's an interesting thing. Well, we're on our pace lap as the Lamborghini safety car leads them around. We talked about Niederhauser for Raton Racing on pole with that new track record, 112 plus. The European Pro Champion, Petra Kujala, the young Finnish phenom, starts second in the 132 for Bonaldi Motorsport. Niederhauser's teammate at Raton Racing, the number 190 of Alberto Di Folco, who in the 2 races yesterday twice had to come from dead last up and podiumed in one of them, so he's a pretty talented driver as well. And then the North American champion, Richard Antonucci, along with his co-driver, Eduardo Piscopo, in the Ogaro Motorsport number 50, are starting in the 4th spot. 5th in the pro category is the champion in the Asian Pro Series for Top Speed Motorsports, Afik Yazid, doing a nice job in the number 233. Then we move back to our pro car in the pole, if you will, in the Pro-Am category for the Huracán Pro-Am for Top Speed Racing out of, again, the Asian Series. Juan Bo and Eduardo Liparati, who is an Italian driver who is a very, very quick driver, put that car up into that pole run. 7th overall, 6th in the pro category is Daniel Zampieri, who we've seen for Antonelli Motorsport be very fast in the pro ranks. The guy who won the Pro-Am championship yesterday has moved up, put a deal together to run as a pro in this one, Lodi Spinelli. So that's going to be fun to see. Then second in the Pro-Am category, Cedric Spirituali and his co-driver Lawrence DeJours. They race in the North American Championship for Team STR. And again, Cedric is wicked quick and did a nice one. Continuing on, Enrique Bernoldi, who ended up second in the North American Pro Championship in the number 1 Prestige Performance car, starts 7th in class, 9th overall, and 10th overall, 3rd in the Pro-Am points. Kevin Conway, who is a double defending champion in the North American Series in the pro ranks, now running as a Pro-Am driver with Andrea Amici, the young man who, one of the more recent graduates of the Lamborghini Young Driver Program, and so highly rated. Then in the 4th spot in the Pro-Am class, 11th overall, Mikko Escalenen and Kelvin Snokes for Lippert Motorsports, and they came into the weekend leading in the European Pro-Am category. Then Sergio Campana and Fabrizio Crestani for Team Lazarus will start in the number 126. That is 8th in the pro category, 12th overall. And then Florian Spengler will start 9th in the pro category, 13th overall, the number 133 for Benaldi Motorsport. 5th in the Pro-Am category, Giacomo Betti and Simone Pellegrinelli for Imperiali Racing. Starting in the 6th spot in the Pro-Am category, 16th overall, Corey Lewis, the North American champion for Change Racing in the Monster Energy liveried machine. And Madison Snow, a little bit off pace here from what we saw. He actually won one of the races earlier in the weekend for Bad Lambo Racing. We'll talk more about that as we are about to get ready for the green flag. And this one should be exciting. 50 minutes. If we don't have a caution at 20 minutes in, the mandatory pit window opens. And the pace car is in, and that bright gold machine of Patrick Niederhauser leading them out of that last corner. Look at Alberto De Falco. He wanted to be right there so that there will be no opening as we're green for Kujala to try and cut down underneath. But look at the move here by Afik Yazid. He has been very aggressive on the starts. Thought about coming down. And side by side, Kujala got it done, Spencer. An outside move. Went right around Niederhauser into the lead, and Piscopo, who starts that very fluorescent yellow machine, wanting to move up a little bit, but trying still. He's parked around the outside of DeFalco. He's going to run out of racing room, and everybody's smart there, giving him race room.
Yeah, so a good example of good two-wide racing, at the start. It's all pretty bottled up, and guys have to give each other room on both sides of the racetrack. And everyone, despite the big field of really hungry drivers, everyone did a great job there.
Yeah, they did, and unfortunately for Piscopo, he did lose a couple of spots, but better to give up a couple of spots than to damage the car and end up giving up laps while you're trying to fix it. So smart move there, but boy, you can see why Patrick Kujala, the young Finnish driver, won that championship. Aggressive right from the off. And again, up into 3rd, too, Afik Yazid. We've seen him. That's that 3rd car right there, white with that red stripe down slightly off center. Just unbelievably aggressive throughout this event as he runs for the top speed team in the Asian Series. Good driver there in the 115. That's Danielle Zampieri. I think it might be Laura Spinelli again, who, a Pro-Am champion now, has moved up. And that's who I thought was Afik Yazid. That's the 115 up from 7th overall into the 4th spot right now. Great start by that team.
Yeah, that team had a rough day yesterday. They had a good run going, but didn't quite make the pit call correctly and finished well back in the order. But that's a car that can win the race today, and that's one we're going to be keeping an eye on. Absolutely.
It's interesting if this is Spinelli and he's running this quick, and he's still rated as a Pro-Am driver, won that championship. If he turns it over to Daniel Zampieri, who is quicker, wow, it should be something very fun to watch as this one unfolds. So Kujala, the European champion, leads it as they head down into turn 1. Niederhauser, your pole center, slots into 2nd. The 115 again, Spinelli and Zampieri sits 3rd. Alberto De Falco in the 190, teammate to Niederhauser, is 4th. And in 5th right now is your Pro-Am leader, and that is Cedric Spirituali up into, wow, what a start, coming from 8th right now up into 5th. overall leading in Pro-Am. He's the quicker of the two drivers in that pairing by quite a bit. Lawrence DeGeorge will tell you that. But giving it a good run right now and slipping to 6th. Antonucci and Piscopo normally starts that brilliant yellow machine right there, who partnered Antonucci on his way to the championship. Richard very, very happy about that. I had a chance to talk with him this morning, and he said, yeah, after that first race where we didn't get to run, I was a bit nervous.
Yeah, he had a great look at the start from around the outside, but unfortunately they put him on the wrong side for the tight corners and he fell back. But that's a car he's actually held in there too. Antonucci, as we know, is going to get in the cars. Does a great job. Was fantastic all year in the North American Championship. So it's an easy car to spot too for the people at home. So we'll be keeping an eye on that one for sure. Wish he's probably one of the best American hopes here for taking the world title.
Oh, there's any doubt about it. And the interesting thing, Piscopo was last year's world final co-champion. Who starts this car. The only reason he didn't share the championship with Antonucci is he couldn't get to the opening 2 races in Monterey, California, so he didn't get those points. But one thing Antonucci said that he does brilliantly, Piscopo that is he always starts, and he said he finds great speed in that car, and when he gives me the car, it's as if the brakes and the tires haven't even been used. Which means I can just hammer it when I need to, and that's what you want in a co-driver.
Yeah, that's always nice for a co-driver. Gives you something to drive, for sure.
Taking a look here at lap times, best lap so far. Look at that, 2:02.9. And that was at the completion of that first lap. So Kujala absolutely flying here. Things tightening up a little bit, but look at that lap at 2:02.002. That's a pretty quick race lap right there, and gives him that margin of 1.3 seconds over Niederhauser. Then the Spinelli Zampieri car, the 1:15, then the Polko, Spirizwali, Piscopo, and then the 2:33 of Afik Yazid sitting still. Started 5th and sits right there in 6th, and really the reason he's back that one spot was because of that amazing start by the 1:15.
Yeah, I think this is the biggest lead of the weekend we've seen for many of these classes. You know, this has been really tight racing. All the races leading up to this Pro World Final, and yeah, this is living up to the billing here. And keep in mind too, all these cars have to do a mandatory pit stop.
Yep.
The cars with 2 drivers actually have a slight advantage. Their minimum pit time is 3 seconds shorter than the cars with only 1 driver. So this order could further shake up as we get closer to the pit window. So these guys are trying to position themselves to be in position. 3 seconds is the magic number. If you can get a 3-second gap on a car that has 2 drivers, you can stay ahead as you come out of the pits.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, absolutely. And what's interesting here, too, in this Pro-Am battle, you got Cedric Spirizwali, who had an overall win when he ran by himself early in the North American season. He's that fast. Lawrence DeGeorge, when he gets on board, is a few seconds off that pace. The car's second right now in Pro-Am, running 8th overall, the number 208 from the Asian series of Yuan Bo and Eduardo Liberati. Those 2 drivers closer in terms of their speed. And so once that driver change happens, you can very well see that car be the car to beat here.
Yeah, I'm looking close. Madison Snow and Corey Lewis, 2 drivers from the American divisions. They have had a great season so far. Corey Lewis obviously taking the championship in the U.S. Pro-Am Series.
Yep.
And Madison Snow having some great wins, including one here yesterday. And those guys didn't quite qualify as well as they wanted to, but both of them doing a pretty good job right now. The pace is there, and we're keeping an eye on them. Hopefully they can move towards the front and represent Team USA.
Yeah, looking at what we're seeing in terms of lap times right now, you got the fast lap at 2:02.002. You've got to go all the way back to 8th right now to see a fast lap that's outside of the 2:02 range. That's compressed.
In fact, we just saw Niederhausen do a 2:01.7,
well, there it
which
is.
not only puts him at fast lap right now, but it narrows the gap to less than a second to the leader.
Well, I don't know what it is, but Niederhauser, they just have figured this track out. He's figured it out. The team has figured it out. And what's more impressive than anything to me is that that's a brand new team, not just to the series, brand new, the Raton Racing team. So you have to give up some pretty good props to what they're able to do here right now. Here's a look. That's the number 99, that all-white car that's just coming into frame. That's Justin Marks, one of the North American Series Pro drivers. And he was another one who didn't quite get the qualifying run he wanted here. He's currently running 12th in the pro category, 18th overall, and he's certainly capable of better than that, but just didn't quite get that qualifying run. When you get a field that's this good and you're off by a second, that can be 10 spots.
Yeah, and when you have this many cars on the racetrack with a lot of different speeds, it's very difficult to find a clear lap, and I think a couple of the drivers found that in qualifying. They just didn't quite get the lap that they wanted, not because they didn't drive it well, but because they kept running into traffic. And Justin, Corey, a lot of the American guys we've watched all year in that same boat.
Good scrap unfolding here. This is for the it's an intra-class scrap, or an inter-class scrap, because you got the 126, and that's the Sergio Campana Fabrizio Crestani car that is trying to hang on to their overall position. That's a pro car, and right behind him is the 131 of Giacomo Berri and Simone Pellegrini. And the interesting thing here, the driver right now in that 131, I think, is Giacomo Berri. He's the pro guy, and that's why he's giving that pro car in front of him fits, even though they're running in Pro-Am. That's one of the interesting dynamics in the Pro-Am class. If you run by yourself, you got to be a Pro-Am rated driver. But if you're going to run two guys, you can run a Pro and an Am and make that Pro-Am pairing, and that's what's happening now. And we're getting some dark clouds building, and it's taking away enough light. You're starting to see some rotor glow from these guys, too. That's pretty.
Seeing some interesting lines, too, around 17. You know, these guys are all trying to find not only the best path through the corner, but a way to get their car around the guy ahead of them. And, you know, trying to find clean air, and you see some different lines here. A lot of times if you go offline, here in Sebring, you find a bump you didn't know it was there. It can be a pretty exciting moment. But this is a pretty good battle here. We got a lot of pressure. Corey Lewis now. That's Corey?
Yeah, it is Corey.
Yeah, making a nice move.
Well, and yeah, he took advantage of an opportunity, because for a minute there, Berry looked to get around that number 126, and he looked to the inside, and it wasn't going to happen, but that cost him a little bit of momentum, and he had to check up just a little bit. And that's the thing. When you come out of one, if you get a run on the guy and can get inside him, you own three.
Yeah,
because
sure.
That next 3, 4, 5, there's nothing he can really do about it, is there?
No, you're definitely, you know, on the wrong side if you're on the outside of turn one, not only in turn one, but coming into turn three. Of course, that little bend in the road is called turn two. That's why if you get at home think we're skipping one. No, we're not. We give that a name.
We just ignore it.
Yeah, but you go right from turn one to turn three. But this is a great scrap here. You know, these cars are all pretty evenly matched, and as the leader's a little slow in this battle, the rear guys flare out. Try to variety lines. Corey's really putting the pressure on here. It's not a good passing spot there, but it's a good place to tuck your nose underneath on the exit. Maybe try to get a run going into 15.
Here's the battle up front, and Niederhauser has continued to uncork quicker laps than Kujala did. And that margin, last time by it was a second even. It's less than that now. In that other battle we've been watching, the reason we're really paying attention to it is because even though that 126 is down 9th in the pro class, that battle between the 131 of Barry and Corey Lewis, that's the battle for the podium and that final spot on the podium in the Pro-Am category. But now let's take a look and see what the margin is going to be at the line, as Niederhauser, that's nowhere near a second. That margin, 4/10 of a second, as Niederhauser just put up a lap that was a 2:02.0, and Kujala's lap at 2:02.7.
See a definite different style there. Kujala is going in very early, swings wide. Niederhauser staying a little later apexing and getting a little bit of a run underneath. You know, there's merits to both lines. I'm a big fan of the early apex, but certainly now Niederhauser's putting the pressure on with that later apex.
Why do you prefer that? What do you?
I just like to dive in early and fast, and probably just stubbornness. Yeah, I'm just stubborn. I'm not patient enough to slow down early in the corner and get a good run out. I just like to go fast all the time. You know, sometimes it works. Turn one, there's a variety of different lines that work.
Sure.
You know, you can.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, and certain drivers, you prefer a little understeer in the car, you prefer a little oversteer, so that affects how you drive into corners as well in terms of the setup.
Yeah.
And what it does here is it's certainly making this a fun one to watch. And you can see Kujala, the back end of that car, looking a little bit happy right now, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. You know, Niederhauser's not really trying to pass there. He's just trying to fill the mirrors up. He's got every plan to dive back into line, but he wants to make sure that Kujala feels the pressure and is looking in his mirrors more than he's looking at his windshield. And when you do that, you get yourself in situations where you're vulnerable to get past. So we're seeing a really good racecraft here from Niederhauser. And now Kujala just has to keep his head down, keep focused, hit his marks, and not worry too much about what's going on behind him.
Boy, both of those guys really carrying a lot of speed through that little flick to the left, the exit of 15. They don't get over as far and square up for that run onto the straight, but they're carrying a lot of speed through 15 anyway, and certainly can't fault them for the pace that they're running here. And they've been able to put a pretty good gap on the 115 of Spinelli and Zampieri at this stage, down into that bumpy turn 17 once again. And here's that line you're talking about, much wide. Well, that time, though, Niederhauser kind of followed that line up, but boy, and it looks from this camera angle, because that's a compressed lens, like they're going to hit that wall. There's a little room, but you're up against it.
I think Kujala got a little loose coming out of that corner and had to check up at the exit, but I think it also forced Niederhausen to lift as well, so he didn't actually have a run into turn 1, but that was exciting there. He was flirting with that wall for sure.
Open to turn 3. There's that quick little bend to the right, that's 4. And then this corner. This is where I always go on a test day if I'm like for the 12 hours, because you can sit and watch in that corner and you'll know immediately who's dealing with an inherent push in their car and who's got a car that's loose. It shows everything right there. Oh, we got somebody down underneath the bridge apparently in 17 that has spun it. Hopefully they'll be able to continue on as we continue on watching this great battle. And it was the number 114. And we get good news that they have continued. That's Roberto Pampiani and Milos Pavlovic running in the 114 in the Pro-Am class. So they have dropped down out of the top 25 in the overall order with that spin. But boy, this battle continues to be a good one. And Richard Antonucci, or excuse me, Eduardo Piscopo, has now cleared Alberto Di Folco and is now in the 4th spot right now. Problem for him is he is right now 5 seconds adrift in this lead battle.
Yeah, that's a problem if you don't have a good start or a good qualifying effort. You find yourself back in the back. Even though you might be as quick as the leaders, you still have to get through, and by the time you do, sometimes the gap can be too much to overcome. So they're going to try to do a great pit stop and try to make up what they can on pit road, but for now, he's got a little bit of driving to do.
Ullman Straight. There it is. That's your top 5 and 6 starting to pop into frame. And again, Niederhauser got close. Now he's eased off just a little bit, but you had talked about it. When you get too close, when you've got cars that have this much aero and downforce on the car, the underbody, it makes that a little bit better, but when you've got a lot of aero that's created over the car, you get too close, you lose some of that, don't you?
Yeah, it's very difficult to pass in a high downforce car because the car ahead of you makes everything dirty, and you especially get the front wing into dirty air. Front wing obviously being the underwing between the 2 tires underneath the car, and that makes the car understeer. And to get a run off of a corner, you really want to be hard on the gas, and when the car is not turning, you have to make late lifts a lot. So the understeer makes it hard, and a lot of times you'll see guys like in 17 trying different lines, not simply to avoid bumps, but to try to get some clean air on the nose. I haven't actually heard a lot of drivers complaining about it this weekend, so I think some of the bumps have forced the teams to raise up the cars and not quite rely on the aero as much as they do elsewhere, but it's still a factor in some of the faster corners.
And one of the things that I love about this type of car, yeah, I mean, it is a serious, race prep car, and it's stiff and the like, but you can see at this track, because you have to soften it up a little bit, under acceleration, that nose is up, and when they brake right there, that nose just drops. I mean, you can really see the physics in the car working.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to see the movement, especially if you're here watching the side of the road. And a lot of times you can't really tell what's going on. The car might look like it's going smoothly through a corner, and the driver has an absolute handful. But with these cars, you really get a sense for what these guys are going through in the car. This is a very tough racetrack, and it's a physical racetrack. So not only are you having the workout, but you're having to keep your body braced against the bumps and keep yourself in the seat. Even those belts seem tight, when you hit bumps this big, you can bounce all over. So this is a workout, and you really get a sense here watching the cars.
And again, there you can see Kujala, that car, that number 132, just you can see it flat sliding a little bit, and it may just be he's pushing it that hard, but Niederhauser's car looks a little bit more planted. And where that comes to play is later on in the race. If your car's sliding a lot or if it's pushy, you start to eat up front tires, you lose the grip a little bit, and it just sort of, it's just sort of dominoes, doesn't it?
Yeah, really close here. Niederhauser's right there. He's gotten in the draft a couple times, but you notice his line coming off the corner isn't as wide. It makes you think he's maybe turning the car more in the middle of the corner and getting a better run out. There are definitely different styles here. And so far, Niederhauser might just be waiting, saving his tires, and making sure he has a good car for the end of the race. Doesn't seem to be too aggressive. Well, he's in position now, but yeah, he's going to be content just to stay in line and follow along. So this might be a play to get some gap on the 3rd place car, make it a 2-car race. I think he's got the better car right now.
That's what I'm thinking, just watching it, when you see how much more Kujala's car is moving around, and Niederhauser, as I said, just there. And if you're not sliding, you're keeping those tires alive a little bit better. And the margin they've now opened up is the better part of 4 seconds back to the 115 of against Spinelli and Zampieri, as you talked about gapping them. However, closing on that group quickly now, almost just a tick over a second away is Piscopo, and coming up on the back of that 115. And we'll see. We don't want to break away from this battle because it's so compelling, but that battle for third looks to be shaping up as well. Boy, but look at that. Niederhauser now, he's starting to look, isn't he? In, out. And again, he's not making the dive to the pass, but he's sure trying to fill those mirrors.
Yeah, definitely has a plan here. I'm not sure what it is, but he's, I think he's just trying to get Kujla off his game, keep him looking in the mirrors, not out the windshield, like I said. And if the opportunity is there, he'll probably take it, but he's definitely thinking long-term here.
That's that Bishop bend, now that tight 15. Kujla, that time the car not quite as dancy as it had been. Now onto that back straight we go. We are coming up on 2 minutes to go till that mandatory pit window opens again from 20 minutes to 30 minutes. At 10 minutes, there is an open pit window, and sometime in that 10 minutes, you have got to pit. Whether you do a driver change or not, whether you change some tires or not, you have to pit. And that tells the story that, ooh, Niederhauser, I think he lost the air on the nose, or is he pitting? Well, he can't yet because he's not. Window's not. He just lost the air on the nose, didn't he?
Yeah, this battle's ebbed and flowed, but that was definitely a mistake. He got in a little too hot, a little too deep. Had to straighten the car up, get it slowed, get it turned. It was a little wide, and as you can see now, the gap up to almost a second again.
Yeah.
It got down to as little as 0.3. But my guess is this gap keeps ebbing and flowing. He'll be right back there. So far, though, he hasn't really been able to get in the draft to where the draft has been a big advantage.
Right.
He's been close, but not enough to where the draft will pull him by up alongside and maybe create a pass into the corner.
And I think that was a great example of, when you're driving, how much one little thing. You got 17 counted corners here and a couple other little squiggles that we kind of ignore a little bit here. And you think about it, if you're off by a half a tenth in each corner, that's a second. And there was a case of that lap into turn 17, they were absolutely nose to tail. They were running identical lap times. That bobble in 17 and they got to the line, he was a half second off, and that was in that one corner alone. So that's what mistakes could do. Now we go back and pick up this fabulous battle, as we said, with the number 115 of Spinelli and Zampieri, and the number 50 of Piscopo, and he's run him down. He needs to get through him fast here if he wants to get up here and try and maybe after the pit stops have something to do with these front guys.
Yeah, Niederhausen has the opportunity. He has the benefit of being able to wait and just hang out. He's in the catbird seat. But Piscopo now needs to make this move. He needs to get by if he wants to run these guys in the front down. And every lap he doesn't get that pass done is going to be further and further back he gets when he finally gets clear. So he needs to attack now. He's only got another minute or so before there'll be time to open the pit window. You might see him pitting this lap, but
well, he's been running when he's been chasing. He's been running a half to a second quicker. I'd pit now because if you can't get by the guy and you're losing the car, get out, pit, put Richard in. Hopefully, when you come back out, you've got clear track. Richard's fast.
Yeah, we might see a bunch of cars on this lap dive to the pit lane. We'll see.
Well, let's see what happens here.
Yep.
And everybody. Well, it was Kujla stayed out. The leader elected to stay out. So Niederhauser is in. The 115 of Spinelli and Zampieri is in, and Piscopo in. So Kujla electing to stay out on his own for a little bit. Interesting.
This mandatory pit stop has a minimum time.
Yep.
Every car has to pit for either a minute 31 or a minute 34, depending on whether or not there's one or two drivers. So the teams don't really need all that time. They'll take their time. The ones that'll do the driver changes will do that leisurely. And then the teams will try to send the car at a certain point in that pit stop to time it to where they get to pit out exactly just maybe a tenth or two beyond that minimum time. However, if you miss it on the other side, if you're a tenth early, it's a drive-through penalty and your race is practically over. So this is always a challenge here in the pit stops to see kind of how close they want to cut it. You're allowed to slow down a little bit if you're showing up at pit out too early, but they'll get on you if you park the car. So this is always a kind of a antsy, intense part of the race, especially for the strategists, is that pit stop.
Well, it's interesting, too, because it actually, the teams plug in to a feed on the pit wall that gives them scoring information. They actually ask IMSA to change the scoring page to show pit in, pit out, and pit time so that they could calculate a little bit closer, because earlier in the weekend we were having a lot of cars getting penalized because they just weren't tracking it quite right. So they asked for a change in that. And here we go, pit stops. Oh, and Antonucci just could not beat Zampieri out of the pits here. And there goes Niederhauser. So he's completed his stop, but Antonucci would have liked to have been in front of that 115.
Yeah, now look at Niederhauser's pit time, 134.1. Yeah. You cannot do a better job
about as good as
than that. Yes.
And the other cars, of course, doing changes. And there was the issue because Antonucci, they could have done that at a 131, and they ended up with a 134.3. So they were a little long in that pit stop, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. They could have saved some time there for sure. And you know, it's tough. If you have a good car and the race is going well, how much do you want to risk it? You know, it's. But you can see here, we get a good look at the gap. That gap is now 3 seconds bigger than it needed to be. So a tough break for those guys. We'll see if Antonucci can run it down for that last podium spot. That's going to be a pretty good battle over the next couple laps, and this is, you know, our best bet to get one of the American teams up on the podium.
Absolutely. Now, with all the pit sequencing, Kujala, of course, stayed out. He continues to lead, but Alberto De Folco, the team number 190, the gold car to 109 for Niederhauser is second. Spears Wally and Lawrence DeJour still in the top three now, and leading in the Pro-Am category. Enrique Bernoldi stayed out. He now is up into third in the Pro category. And second in Pro-Am, the Asian champion, Juan Bo and Eduardo Liberati in the 208. And Corey Lewis right in the mix here, third in that Pro-Am class right now. Great try from him because he didn't qualify quite where he wanted. He's back a little bit. And we watched him just auger his way up through this back into podium contention.
Yeah, I want to say he was up to about 8th before he pitted, and he started, I think, 15th, 14th-ish. So he definitely had a good drive and is picking up some spots and still has more time to even get a couple more.
Yeah, it started 16th overall, 6th in class. So, yeah, very, very good run here. As watching Mr. Niederhauser doing a good job once. He ran a little wide there, and then that's where you find out where the bumps are really bad.
Yeah, he must be enjoying this time alone on the track without those mirrors.
Pushing, isn't it?
Yeah.
See, when he turned on that lap, I mean, basically that would have been his out lap here. Yeah, so counting that pit time. So we'll see now his best lap in the race at 2:01.7. That's best lap of the race. And remember, tiebreaker here is best laps. If the points are tied, the tiebreaker goes to best lap. So that's important for him here.
Now, Kujala just came out of the pits, and he had a 134.6, so a good pit stop. And he's now being showed the leader. So when things cycle through, we'll see if that indeed holds up to be the case. Gets a little confusing around this time as you have different teams pitting at different times.
Absolutely.
With the longer pit stop, it can take you almost a lap, but everything cycles through, and we'll get a good idea of who did what in the pit stop.
Yeah, it's interesting though. I mean, Kujala, when he came out here, I mean, Niederhauser had to be a little bit defensive because Kujala came out of the pits and was immediately fast. I don't know whether that stop, maybe he had overcooked his tires a little bit and brought them back just a little bit sitting in pit lane. I mean, you wouldn't do a tire change. You don't have to do that. But sometimes if you've overheated the tires, you back off and cool them down, they'll come back, but you lose time to who you're racing. Well, the mandatory pit stop, they'll just naturally cool a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. The car feels really good as you come out of that mandatory pit stop.
Yeah, I bet it does.
For a lap or two.
Yeah, always. Then things change up. So now things starting to equalize here a little bit. Onto that front back straight, the long Ullman straight here, as they come whistling down here. And again, once everything cycles, this should be for the lead. And then there is the 115. And I mean, I would imagine it would be Daniele Zampieri now behind the wheel of that 115. And then chasing him is Antonucci. As they come onto the front straight, now we'll get to see some relative lap times. And now Niederhauser's flowing it a lot more out at this stage, isn't he? Let's see what we can get for some laps here. We look at it, last lap time for Niederhauser at 2:02.7. That's a good lap here for his first lap out of the pits. Kujala, we're going to have to wait one more lap to see. Woo! Big loose moment, though, at the exit of one for Kujala. It tells you how hard he is pushing.
Yeah, he's definitely pushing it pretty good. That's a scary place to get loose coming out of one. Not only is it bumpy there, so it's hard to regain control of the car, but that dirt patch there is very slippery, so if you drop a wheel there, it's really easy to get the car turned around or to take something off the bottom of it. So
yeah, that's a good point too, isn't it?
Exciting moment there. Notice how
it's not always a wreck, is it? It could just be damaging the car.
Yeah.
Under tray, winglets, dive planes.
And a car that relies on the underwing to go fast, you know, something you definitely don't want to do.
You were saying?
going off the road, you don't want to do that if it, because it relies so much on the parts underneath the car to make the grip and the downforce.
Well, on the other side of it, at the start of that previous race, we saw just some close quarter stuff into turn 1 right off the green, and you saw a dive plane flying up in the air. And if that, that's downforce on the nose, you lose one of those, you get a little push. The tires get rooted a little bit quicker. I mean, it's just amazing how everything can affect everything else here. And Kujala has upped his game a little bit here, and suddenly we see Niederhauser making a couple mistakes.
Yeah, for sure. This was the reverse of what we saw early in the session. We thought Niederhauser was in the catbird seat, just kind of hanging out and waiting. Now he's ahead, and it seems like the car's getting ragged. So the same thing applies. You drive in your mirrors and spend a lot of time looking behind you. You can do things like miss apexes and have blurred slides that you didn't plan on having. So the game has changed, but the same two players are still out there.
2.5 minutes about remaining in that pit window. So the 208 of Yuan Bo and Eduardo Liberati, Cedric Spirizoli in the 07, and Corey Lewis and Delantha Malagamau, who runs in the Asian Series in the number 224 in the Pro-Am category. And you can see Alberto De Folco has done his stop. So that's being solved here. He will be back out, but anybody who isn't, good to see Corey Lewis is in within the window. As you get to this point here where you're now past less than 2 minutes to go, if you're early in your lap, you're never going to make it around to get in. And right now we've got a couple of guys that show as not having pitted yet, so let's see whether they're going to be able to get around and in. Let's certainly hope so.
Yeah, this will be their last chance on this lap, because there's no way they're going to get around again if they miss it this time. And as things are cycling through, we're seeing Niederhausen taking back the lead of all the guys who have made their pit stops. Corey Lewis just coming out of the pits, but he's going to be well behind the lead pack there. So this should cycle through, and this, as you said, will be our lead battle when we get everyone complete with their mandatory stop.
And it would be Niederhauser, then Kujala, then again the 115, Antonucci, and Rafik Yazid staying right in it here. The driver is the lone pro driver in the Asian Series right now. Another one of the graduates from the Lamborghini Squadra Corsa Young Driver program. And Rafik, we've seen him being very aggressive, and he certainly has good pace. Nice to see it, and they're running in front of Enrique Bernoldi. When you're running in front of a former Formula 1 driver, you're doing something right.
Yeah, for sure. Running in front of this field, anywhere near the front, it's, obviously you're doing something right. This, again, I can't say how impressed I've been with some of the drivers who have adapted so quickly, some of the teams, and this is getting to be one of the pinnacles of road racing. All the guys here that are racing and winning races are the top drivers in the world. So it's nice to have them here on our soil. It's fun to watch, and it's fun to be a part of it. But they're racing pretty hard right now.
Boy, aren't they? And we just saw that. See Eduardo Liberati turning that car over, I think, to Yuan Bo. So they have made their stop. And just looking through things here, Madison Snow has quietly really put it together here. 4th fastest lap of the race right now, has worked his way up to what will be, by my reckoning, well into the top 10, as that pit window is now closed. And he's up right behind Florian Spengler and Enrique Bernoldi. So in his turn to his lap at 2:03.1, that's a very quick lap. So whatever the issue was in qualifying, they've been able to put it together here. Ooh, and Kujala a little bit loose there. Once again, we've seen him, that back end, stepping out at the exit of turn 1 a few times here. And so he's starting to hammer it a bit here.
It's not something that's going to get better.
No. Like you pointed out, that turn, if there are two options when it goes wrong there. You go off the outside, that's going to be pretty big. And if you do the hook across, that's going to be pretty big, because it's all you're going so fast at that point in the track.
Key in turn 1 is to try to recognize a mistake soon. If you're in too hot on the way in, you can actually straighten your hand, stay on the brake a little longer. You might kill your lap time, but you'll save the car. But if you hang on to it and you get to the exit, you get out in that really bumpy part of the racetrack and find yourself bumping and bouncing off the road onto that dirt patch, it's very easy to spin. And no matter which way you go, bad things will happen.
You're saying that's not a I got it, I don't got it corner.
It's not.
You want to catch it early and save it, yeah.
You could be pretty brave going in. There's plenty of room, but on the way out, it's a very narrow window, and the bumps make it harder.
Hey, we just got a call from race control. We have a car stopped on track at turn 5. Oh, the number 1 of Bernoldi reported to be moving. He's moving again, but moving slowly. That's not what you want to see here. Ooh, that move by Corey Lewis. He got down and underneath the 07 of Lawrence DeGeorge and Corey, that car was dancing as he did that. And this is a case where the very fast driver, Cedric Spears-Wally, out of that car, and Lawrence DeGeorge, who is a driver that is definitely an AM-rated driver. He just doesn't have the pace right now. He's got to be very aware and using his mirrors heavily here at this stage. Is that Niederhauser? Just ducked into the pits? I think it was.
It was.
Oh man, from the lead. And this is completely unplanned for Niederhauser. And it was interesting because we were watching Kujala was bouncing all over the track and struggling to stay with him. So I'm not sure exactly. Now I just heard, I didn't catch the number, but there was a penalty being issued by race control. And maybe it was for Niederhauser.
Yeah, he's not stopping in the pit box.
And here it is. Boy, this isn't just a drive-through either. It's a stop and go. We'll try and find out what that was for. I missed that part of the call. I just heard that there was a penalty. Oh boy, huge implications on this race.
It's got to be frustrating for Niederhauser. You know, he did such a good job, and he was one of the top 2 cars the whole race. And I'm sure, you know, they've come a long way to be here, and have something like that take him out of the contention for the first race. That's just, you feel really bad for the guy, but that's part of the deal here. We'll find out what it is and see if maybe it was something he did or something the team messed up on. But yeah, really, really frustrating, I'm sure. He does have an opportunity, though, to try to move back up. There's some cars ahead of him that are within striking distance, but still not the podium or the win that he was hoping for.
Yeah, frustrating because he certainly has shown the pace, hasn't he? And that the problem is, and I'd said this in that previous race, that you think, okay, I have 2 races here. So if I have a little problem in one, I can make it no, because at this level, you're going to have guys that are going to execute in both races and be very strong. So if you have a big thing like that at one of the races, your shot at a world final is probably out.
Yes,
that's
for sure.
The frustrating thing. Yeah.
Very frustrating. So right there with Madison Snow and Corey Lewis, some of the American guys. You know, he's trying hard to get back through. Some of the people were doing a little bit of blocking there, but I think that's par for the course. Some of these countries where these guys race.
Yeah, absolutely. It's and that's it. I mean, the series, they operate under kind of the same umbrella here, but there are little differences in the like. And here's Alberto De Folco, who sits in the 5th spot right now, and that's 5th overall, 5th in pro. And now with Niederhauser dropping back, and they come through scoring here, it goes now Alberto De Folco, his teammate. 109 for Niederhauser, 190 for De Folco in that brand new Raton Racing team. And what a story they have been here, obviously. And Niederhauser just dropping down the order. And that's what we're talking about. Now that it's the laps have been completed, it shows you exactly what's happened here. And so that is quite literally going to put that number 115 for Antonelli Motorsport. Now we think in the hands of Daniele Zampieri up into 2nd. Problem is he's 7 seconds back of a Kujala right now, and then Antonucci is another 1.5 adrift in the number 50 here. Looking at last lap times, though, Zampieri running about a half second quicker than Kujala, and almost matching that lap time, Spencer, in the last lap was Antonucci at a 2:02.9.
Yeah, it's very frustrating. We're trying to run down the leaders, and they keep matching you lap for lap for lap. You know, and now that Niederhauser had to make that pit stop, Kujala sees almost a 7-second lead. So, his mindset has obviously changed now. He's just trying to click off laps, just under 15 minutes to go. Probably has about, 8 more to go. And he knows that if he just runs good, clean, solid laps, he can do it. But it's certainly a different type of racing when you're in the lead. Under pressure like that, or you're catching someone or trying not to be caught, you're battling for the lead, you're thinking corner for corner, and you're really focused in the moment. But once something like this happens now where you have a lead, now the voices start to creep in your head, and you start to think about things that maybe aren't important for getting around the racetrack. So I think sometimes he's in an even tougher position than he was when he was fighting for the lead. But I'm sure he's got the skill set to keep his focus and bring it home.
And I wanted to ask you this way. I have a little, not right in your face racing right now, so I did have a question I wanted to ask. Because I did it, on the rare occasion when I was racing and had a big lead, and again, rare, but, you do hear everything. You think, oh, is that something coming apart? Did I, whatever. When you're in the throes of battle, you're just driving. But that's true, and everybody says, oh, that's just a cliche. No, it's true. When you're by yourself, you got that big lead, you hear everything in that car and wonder what's happening.
Yeah, and I think you have a lot of thoughts that enter your mind that wouldn't enter if you're battling. You know, your brain has the time to wander and think about, how many laps to go and how much time can I give away per lap. You start doing math. Okay, I have a 7-second lead. I've got 8 more laps to go. I can give up just under a second a lap and then next thing you know, you've gone 3 corners and really haven't been paying attention to what's ahead of you because you've been doing weird things in your head. So I think a lot of times, when you're in a position like this, you've got everything to lose, nothing to gain. It's tough.
Well, and a lot of times, I've also had people say, he had a 10-second lead and he just kept clocking off fast lap. Why? Because when you slow down and lose your concentration, that's when, like you're talking about, you're thinking, okay, I can give up this much time, and suddenly you just went by your breaking point. And it's better if you're in that zone, just drive.
I always find that if I'm in this position, I like to keep doing the same thing I was doing that got me there and try not to get out of that rhythm and out of that mindset. It's when you do back it down, that's when you start to allow yourself maybe kind of you paint with a broader brush and you're not so precise with what you're doing. And a lot of times it can get you in trouble.
Boy, Kuzula responded. Remember, I just mentioned that Zampieri had just turned a lap about a half second faster than Kuzula, and Kuzula just turned a lap at 2:02.7, and Zampieri's lap at 2:03.3. But here's where it gets a little bit interesting, is Antonucci just uncorked at 2:02.8. And he is starting to reel him in just a little bit. And the gap now between that 115 and the 50 of Antonucci, well, you can see it here, it's pretty much evaporated.
Yeah, and you have to imagine these guys that are fighting now are going to be fighting tomorrow. And so for points battles, every one of these spots is going to count. Unless someone has a big problem, finishes way back in the order. A difference between a second and a third, when those same cars are going to populate the front of the grid tomorrow, it could be a big deal. So this is a really important battle we see. Even though they're both looking to be on the podium, if things stay the way they are, I'm sure Antonucci still wants to take second.
Absolutely. And when you tally the points, the best possible finish you can get here, it's a 2-point swing if he can get in front. And, if Kuzula has a little issue yesterday and ends up third, that's enough, perhaps. So, you've just got to go after it. And he's got time here. We still got 11 minutes left in this race.
I'm noticing as they come into turn 7, a lot of these drivers are starting their braking from the middle of the road. And that's something in 20 years of coming here I've actually never seen before. In, even some of the American Le Mans or, WeatherTech sports car races, I really don't see that line, but a lot of the drivers here seem to be doing it. So I'm curious as to why. Maybe I'll do some digging tonight, see if we can get an answer for you guys tomorrow.
Yeah, well, I've been seeing it too, and the the two thoughts that came to me were, one, if you think the guy's maybe going to make a move, and you've been now told you can't go in reaction, you move to the middle, and then if he isn't close enough, you can swing back over. But over the years, as you start to brake for that hairpin, there is a bump on that transition where the pavement changes, and I wonder if that's gotten worse, and so they're just saying, well, if I move over, I'm finding it smoother. I don't know. Yeah. Kind of like at Monaco, when you come out of to the top of the hill and you make that turn down, and where that road transitions across, they all swing way around.
Yeah, absolutely, that could be the case. I saw Spinelli get a little wide there going through 15, and now Antonucci's close enough now to be drafting. And I think this battle just got a little bit more exciting. We'll see the gap when they cross start-finish, but definitely a mistake by Spinelli, and definitely still this battle's raging on.
Interesting, too, you watch the two approaches for these guys as they turn in for 17, and the number 115, it's a very abrupt turn to get the car straight, and that's when you go really close to that wall, and then you just straight line it in, and then you watch Antonucci in that brilliantly fluorescent number 50, a little bit smoother on that turn, but both seem pretty effective. But boy, it's on here for this final podium spot. It's just a matter of, will it be 115 or will it be 50 for the pro category? Keeping you honest, in Pro-Am, big development here. Corey Lewis has gone to the front after the stops and has now 6th overall, leading in the Pro-Am category, the American Pro-Am champion. And Yuan Bo and Eduardo Liberati, Yuan Bo on board now, just not able to quite match those speeds, running about 1.5 seconds a lap off of Corey, and he's been able to get around. And 3rd in the Pro-Am category, Kevin Conway, who was teamed up with the very impressive young Italian driver, Andrea Amici, and they're having a very, very good run here, sitting 3rd right now. And Madison Snow had worked his way up. Now he's at least in the top 10 in the pro category, sitting in 9th. But he had awfully good lap.
Yeah, Madison's been creeping up the front of the grid. he's done a good job moving forward. You know, he's a guy who's won races in the series and certainly wants to be competitive here this weekend. And you know, had a little bit of trouble some of the qualifying session as we documented, but still real solid run here. And you know, he's been back and forth with Conway, and it seems like that's going to be a battle, even though it's not for position in class. They still want to finish high in the overall standing.
Well, that's going to be frustrating because one of the races he won in the series was this weekend, and now to be back like this, you know, that'll frustrate you a little bit. But that's part. He's a young guy. That's part of the learning curve. He's got immense raw talent, and now it's just developing that racecraft. And you know, when you're racing, you deal with adversity sometimes, and that's part of the curve. As we're watching now, the leader in the Pro-Am category, the number 29 of Corey Lewis, right there in that Monster Energy liveried car. And really an impressive run that he's been able to put together here as he's worked his way up and into the lead here. Again, started 6th in class, 16th overall in that change racing machine. And yeah, boy, leading now. That's a superb drive. Still no change. Kujala still leads, and he stretched that margin out now a little bit. But the 115 of Zampieri and Spinelli and Antonucci in the 50, that battle is still on, but it is awfully close. Last time by officially under 0.4 of a second. There they are. That close, and still he hasn't been able to figure out a way by, but the number 115 has sure not been able to shake him.
Yeah, this is a situation where Antonucci knows he's probably not going to be able to get by and run down Kujala for the lead. So this is the fight he's in. This is what he really needs to concentrate on to the end of the race, and he might be just sitting waiting for an opportunity. He can actually afford to be patient now, whereas earlier he couldn't.
Right.
Now this is going to be a battle for second. He wants to just bide his time and pick a good opportunity.
As we're at 6.5 minutes remaining in this first of the two races for the Huracán Pro and Huracán Pro-Am category drivers and teams in their quest of a World Finals championship, or at least the top 3 here. And this is the battle, 2nd and 3rd on track. Spinelli and Zampieri, and the number 115, the white car with the red striping, and right behind it, you can't miss that number 50 from O'Gara Motorsport. A pretty amazing story there. And both of these teams, well, Antonelli Motorsport is new to the European Series and new to Lamborghini Blancpain Super Trofeo action. O'Gara is a brand new team. Was created, though, by Tom O'Gara, who ran with Global. Whoa! That's another car off to the side. Thought for a minute that the 115 had a little bit of an issue. But that O'Gara Motorsport team, oh, here we go. And he's not quite there. Watch the abrupt turn. It wasn't quite as abrupt because I think he was worried that Antonucci might come steaming up the inside of him here as they come out. And we're going to, if they cross the line, it'll be just about 5 minutes, 20 seconds or so left in this one. So I'd guess possibly 3 laps anyway, at least, to go here. So he's got time. But yeah, O'Gara had run with as a driver with the Global Motorsports Group, and decided, you know, I love the driving, but I love the challenges of team ownership. Created O'Gara Motorsport and took Antonucci to the title in their first year. That says something.
Yes, not a bad season for them for sure. You know, they're going to be really proud of what they've done there. You see Antonucci's pushing it. He's using all the track and more, and yeah, kicked up a little dust that time, but and did lose a step, unfortunately, but he'll get right back up in there. He seems to be a little tidier in spots, and that's allowing him to stay close.
By the way, that car that was off, we just caught a glimpse of that startled us for a minute, is the 118 of Fernando Croce and Nicolas Costa for Vincenzo Sospiri Racing VSR. Now, that little moment at the exit of 5 for Antonucci, obviously that dirties up the tires a little bit. How long does it take generally to get that gunk off and get those tires back to full form?
But typically it takes a couple corners, but because fortunately for him, that next corner or the next straightaway is actually a long bend that actually pulls some of that dirt off. So he was probably good to go by the time he got to the brakes on a 7.
Good.
But he was fortunate there for sure.
Here we go into Bishop Bend. No lift, now brake. And boy, as it's clouding up here, and of course sunset comes a lot earlier nowadays, and I just love it in some of these corners, especially in the 17, where normally you have the sun right in your eyes. That can be kind of blinding with the cloud cover. That's a good thing, but I'm loving seeing the rotor glow that we're starting to see here. And now that they're apart a little bit here, I want to see again if the 115 Zampieri He's more abrupt when he makes that turn. He really wants to get it rotated and then straight for the braking zone, doesn't he?
Yeah, and you see Antonucci running a little bit wider line, and you might be thinking, why is he doing that? At this track, underneath the bridge, it gets bumpier and bumpier. So even though ideally you'd want to clip that wall and make the corner as short as you possibly could, because the bumps are so bad. Yep. Oh, a little block.
There's a couple there because the 115 anticipated a pass and moved.
Now Richard Antonucci looking the inside. He had a little bit of a run, but he's content to stay in line here. Spinelli's getting a little bit defensive, and that's usually a good sign. If you're behind someone, they start going defensive, you know that they're starting to get concerned about their car and their tires, and that's always what I want to see. You got a little traffic here, might play a factor. These guys should clear him before they get to 7, and hopefully if one does, both does.
And the 115 just got a warning for blocking. A warning, not a penalty, a warning, but you get 1. But boy, it was absolutely beautiful, though, getting that pass and getting that car kind of in between himself, and that's going to really affect the exit speed for Antonucci here, isn't it? Coming out of the hairpin, that was big.
Yeah, that timing was just terrible, unfortunately. Sometimes in racing it comes down to luck, and Spinelli got the car on the straightaway. Antonucci had to pass him in the corner. You can see the gap. Now there's 2 minutes left. They'll probably come by and get the white flag this time. So he does have time, but this is not going to make his job a whole lot tougher.
Yeah, and that's another one of the those scenarios where people get frustrated. What the heck was that car? And it's like, well, he can't hit the disappear button. He is where he is, and as you said, it's just a matter of where you catch him. Now we'll see whether Antonucci, who's shown that on clear track, he definitely has a little bit better pace, at least here in the last few laps. We'll see if he can run him back down again. Up front, Kujala's margin 9.2 seconds last time by. We're anticipating white flag coming out. And again, Corey Lewis has a fair amount of room right now. He's got a car between himself and Yuan Bo and Eduardo Liberati in the 208. So Lewis looking fairly solid. And we'll see what plays out as we start this final lap. White flag is out. And Kujala, as he enters turn 1, there's our battle for second, just exiting turn 1.
So going back to Spinelli's penalty there, I'm sorry, the warning, not the penalty. You're allowed to make moves on the straightaway, but you just can't make them in reaction to a competitor. When Antonucci took a look inside, then Spinelli made a move. It was clearly in reaction to Antonucci's look, and that's why he got the warning. If I'm in charge, there are no warnings. You do it or you don't do it. But fortunately, he got away with that one. But he better be on notice now. Played really clean, really fair.
Absolutely, and nice job there. Well, I thought that car was going to move and let Kujala through. Kujala's got a huge margin, so we're going to wait. Here he comes. There's that battle for second, and Antonucci has closed up a lot of ground here as he comes up, and he's within a car length now. That did not take too long. That last lap, well, because of at the last lap, it was obviously because of that traffic. The 115 was a bit quicker, but it didn't take long now that they're clear and running for Antonucci to be able to reel him back in. Hard under the brakes here.
And obviously now Antonucci does not have any time left. He cannot afford to be patient. Any opportunity he sees between now and the checker, he needs to take.
Let's hope he takes it cleanly when he gets the opportunity. Now through Tower Turn, so we're starting that last third of a lap here, making the run down to Bishop Bend. Flat out, first apex. Floats out, second apex. Not quite close enough there. This might just come down to turn 17.
Yeah, he's been using that high line, driving around the middle. Antonucci has, sorry. Spinelli's been pretty tight, so there's definitely an opportunity there. He needs to be close here. He needs to use the draft.
He got out of there well.
Yeah, striking distance.
Yeah, there's Kujala. You just saw him, so he's comfortable. He'll be there. And here we go. Antonucci showing the nose, trying to get in the head of the 115. They fold into turn number 17 last time. Here comes Kujala. Checker flag will fly. Watch for him behind. Is it going to hang the 115? He got it done. And now, for some reason, moves way over. That was interesting because there was a shorter run for Antonucci to the checkered flag. So, nonetheless, he may have just been going over, the old European to the pit wall to say thanks to the team there. But, wow, what a great battle. And you think Kujala's a little worried about
ride height?
Ride height?
Yeah, so for you guys watching at home who don't understand, they check these cars afterwards to make sure that they're high enough to meet the minimum ride height. a lot of times if these teams are pushing it, they'll drive through the grass or dirt or marbles and try to just pick up any bit of debris to make those tires just a little thicker so they can get that extra millimeter or two. And usually you go and find rubber, but he's
that I've never seen that before. I look over. Now they're getting warnings. They're telling 132, get on course. Do not drive off track. So
he's got to do both sides evenly, I guess, right?
I guess.
He's ignoring those warnings if he's getting them.
That's the second time now that race control has told him to get back on track. I've never seen a post-race after the race penalty for track limits. That would be bizarre.
Maybe he's trying to get the tires slippery for donuts. That's typically what you see is the guys just going into the debris that builds up on the outside of the track. But I mean, you can't fault him. He did an awesome job today and got the job done.
Great drive, wasn't it?
Yeah,
and again, at the 10th round with 2 races, the final event to spare, he'd already clinched the European Championship. I mean, 9 wins this year out of 12 races, up against some awfully tough competition. That says a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, and Niederhaus is really upset. He drove a great race and just had that penalty. We're still not sure why, but that took him out of possible contention for the win. But Kujala, happy guy.
And hearing that, getting a little bit of an update, not clear as to what the improper procedure was, but the penalty for Niederhauser was improper procedure. Normally that means an improper pit procedure. My guess is, as you can hear Maxwell Smart saying, he may have missed that by that much on that pit window. That's usually what we've been seeing. And we did hear a number of different cars during that race, other cars getting a drive-through for that very reason. So that may have been it. But and what a nice guy and a nice drive here. And how cool must it be for Loris Spinelli, who on Sunday won the Pro-Am category, put a deal together apparently late to not run Pro-Am for the World Finals, but to team with Daniel Zampieri as a pro and run in the pro ranks and finish second.
Yeah, great
that
job.
is superb for Loris Spinelli. And again, Daniel Zampieri is a very, very good driver, so just a nice job for those two guys. And Tanucci and Piscopo come home third. Alberto De Folco for that new Raton Racing team, teammate to Niederhauser, end up 4th overall and in pro and 5th overall. Niederhauser, he threw down some laps late in that race. Niederhauser, a 2-minute 3.089 on his last lap. And that got him up and around Corey Lewis and back into 5th, overall 5th in pro. But Corey Lewis, the young American, winning the North American Championship, now winning the first leg of the doubleheader for these 2 classes in pursuit of a World Finals Championship. And he gets those 15 points, finishes 6th overall, that 29. Monster Energy Change Racing Machine, 2nd in Pro-Am, the 208. Champions in the Asian Pro-Am category, Eduardo Leporati and Yuan Bo. And finishing 3rd for the Pro-Am category, the number 3. And that, too, was an absolutely great drive up from a little bit farther back in the pack. The 110 for Conrad Motorsport of Adrian Amstutz and Giovanni Venturini. And thinking about it here, they started 19th overall, 8th in Pro-Am, and come home 10th and 3rd in Pro-Am. An absolutely great drive for them. So that would be your podium. And then 4th in Pro-Am, the number 103. Excuse me, folks. That is Sebastian Merchant and Martin Kodrich for Benaldi Motorsports. Started 10th in Pro-Am, 22nd overall, and they find themselves up in 4th in the Pro-Am category and completing the top 5 in Pro-Am. And this one is another great story, Spencer, another driver who stepped up, the number 178. And again, they came from deep in the pack as well. Started 13th in Pro-Am, 25th overall. Harold Schlegelmelch, who's a very talented pro driver for Artline Team Georgia. But Shota Abkazava, who was the driver that won the AM championship in the European Series yesterday, stepping up into Pro-Am in top 5. So some great accomplishments by guys that finished championships in lower classes saying, let's see what I can do in this class. and showing they belong.
Yeah, top 5 in class, top 13 overall, or 13th overall. It's a great run for those guys who definitely, decided to step up and did so with great success. So.
Yeah, they stepped up, and they stepped up.
Yeah.
That's you love to see it. And I think one of the best pieces of news is that we were supposed to today get rain. And there was a potential for some serious rain. And when this race started, I was looking at those clouds. I'd have put down a little bit of money that it was going to be wet before this one ended. And it stayed dry. We're getting reports that there are some spots. That is what I'm talking about, that a little bit of drizzle might be starting here. But before it gets too wet, let's get down once again to Giulio Risso with our winner.
Patrick. He's very tired now, looking for sugar. We'll have a word with Patrick at the podium, okay? Let him rest. It's very hot in the car.
Yeah, sounds good, Giulio, and you can see he had to work awfully hard. I think that car may not have been as good as he would have liked it because he was loose, he was dancing all over the place, he was fighting it, and you can see, these are some seriously fast cars, and anybody who says race drivers at this level aren't athletes are clueless.
Yeah, we've all been there. And if you guys are watching this up in your hometown of Minnesota, it's probably 20 below up there. But we're still in Florida. It's still warm out. It's still humid.
It's
and
thick.
This is a bumpy, physical racetrack. So you can tell that he was working hard. He deserved every bit of that win.
He did. And, he was ready for the interview. Julio was. And Patrick said, I can't, So we'll be talking to him a little later. Getting the official word, it wasn't a pit lane infraction in terms of too short for Niederhauser. It was speeding. He was plus 13. So 13, and they do it in kilometers, and he was 13. So too fast, that's serious. And that's a safety issue. That's why you have the pit lane speed limits to get the cars woed. Remember back in the day, and you'd watch cars come whistling into the pits at 120 miles an hour and stuff, and if something goes wrong, it's bad. So they have the speed limits, and the only way you can ultimately enforce it is when somebody doesn't get underneath that speed limit. You've got to penalize them.
Yeah, we don't know if it was on the way in or on the way out or somewhere in the middle, but typically as you try to charge that pit and make up all the time you possibly can, you try to get down to the pit speed limit at the last possible minute, and if you overshoot it, maybe lock up the brakes or use the ABS and slide past before you get down to pit speed, that can bust you. Or if you're just a little optimistic coming off the button, these cars accelerate quickly, and it doesn't take long, it's only a couple feet, and you'll be up 13K as you cross the loop at the pit out.
620 horsepower.
Yeah.
It moves. And that's a good point. We haven't really talked about it too much, but with this pit stop and with that mandatory minute plus the time in, time out, and they all factor that in, and then the difference for 2 drivers versus 3, all of that's figured. As they say, the in-lap and the out-lap can be the difference in where you end up cycling into position, isn't it?
Yeah, it's tough here, too, because you come under 17. It's really bumpy on the inside, as we talked about, right under the bridge, but that's kind of where you want to be to not only get to the pits effectively, but signal to everyone behind you that you're going to be slowing down, and if they do want to try to pass, go on the outside. You certainly don't want to be wide under the bridge in 17 and then diving across traffic to get to pit in. So you really have to be on your toes here, and you can get an advantage by really driving a good line into the 17. So we saw, some of the guys swinging out wide towards the cones right before the pit-in commitment point, and it doesn't surprise me that, 1 or 2 got it on the wrong side because everyone was pushing pretty hard the whole time.
Yep, have to do it here if you want to find yourself in contention for a World Finals Championship. So Kujala earns the top 15 points. And again, what a story, I think, for Loris Spinelli, moving up from Pro-Am into Pro for this World Finals, teaming with a good one. But both of them had to be fast to do what they were able to do here and end up second. Antonucci and Piscopo ending up with a third, and considering they started fourth, not too bad to be able to move up that spot. And that's your podium. Then Alberto Di Folco and his teammate Niederhauser, who was so quick in qualifying, had that penalty, still came back for fifth, and good run there. Corey Lewis, the young American, winning in the Pro-Am category, getting those max 15 points over Johan Bo and Eduardo Liberati in the 208. And in third in Pro-Am, the 110, and again coming from way back. And again, that's Adrian Amstutz, one of the drivers in that number 110 car. And as we said, they started back in the order a little bit. He and Giovanni Venturini doing a nice job coming up to complete the podium in Pro-Am, fourth in Pro-Am. These next 2 cars, the 103 and the 178, also starting well back. Sebastian Marchand and Martin Kodrich for Benaldi Motorsport, fourth, and completing the top 5, the 178 of Shota Abkazava and Harold Schlegelmilch. And Schlegelmilch is a pro driver, but Shota Abkazava officially still has the A next to his name for amateur, stepping up into Pro-Am and putting it up into the top 5 with his co-driver. Just really remarkable achievements there. So congratulations to our top 5 in each of our classes. Get to do it again tomorrow. Be in the morning tomorrow as opposed to the heat of the afternoon. And here's something to consider. Today, temperatures mid to upper 80s and humid. Tomorrow, based on the forecast, low 70s for highs. And it'll be in the morning, so completely different conditions here. And we might get some rain overnight, and of course that changes the whole characteristic of the track.
Yeah, the guys yesterday, after they came off the track the first time,
Yep.
they really talked about how the cars were different. And they wanted to throw a lot of setup changes at it. But, you know, we reminded them, hey, it poured 2 nights ago. Went ahead and poured again last night. We have had a ton of rain since we've been down here for this event. Fortunately, most of it has been while we've been off track. But we have seen
truly.
some while we're on track, too. And every time that rain washes the rubber off, it it changes the characteristics. It doesn't take long, though, to get the rubber back. So a lot of the teams, they don't want to make too many setup changes because they'll find themselves right back to where they want to be if they just, stick with it. But, tomorrow, cooler temperatures earlier in the day.
Yep.
It might change the way the cars behave. But you know what? Watching Kushla get out of the car, as sweaty and as tired as he was, I bet he's looking forward to 10 degrees cooler tomorrow, as I'm sure are a lot of those guys up and down the field.
Well, that's the other thing. When it's cooler like that, the engines make more power. So, those big V10s are going to be even stouter. But the aerodynamics are more effective because you get the denser air. Cold means dense, more molecules per square inch in the air and the like. And so the aerodynamics are even more effective. I mean, we might see some, assuming we're not racing in the wet, we could see some really fast stuff tomorrow. And, I think the upside, too, here, Spencer, is unlike a weekend during the season when, for the American Series, for instance, you're running with the IMSA WeatherTech Championship where you got the sports cars running and you've got a couple of other support series running, everybody on different rubber and the like. Here, it's all Pirelli P0, so you don't have to deal with that difference in tire compound. So it'll build quicker, won't it?
Yeah, there's a lot more consistency when you just have one brand of tire here on the weekend, and it's kind of nice to be the feature here this weekend for the Lamborghini Super Trofeo guys, and they're not competing with any other series for track time, and it's really cool that they're the focus. This weekend has been all about the Lamborghini series, and they've really done a good job of putting on a show here,
haven't they?
And they've drawn a couple spectators here, and people seem to really be coming out. So this is a neat event, and it's nice to have it in the U.S. It's been in Malaysia, and then it's been in Europe, and now back in the U.S. this season, and then it's going to continue that cycle. So Sebring has done a great job being home for this round and showcased the U.S. very well. And they came to one of the bumpiest tracks we have. But that's the cool thing about Sebring is it's bumpy. If they fixed it, it wouldn't be the same place.
It wouldn't be Sebring.
No.
And it's interesting because a lot of Audi, of course, that back in the American Le Mans Series days raced here a lot. When the P1 category changed and they were no longer racing here, one of their most important test tracks is still Sebring. So they pack everything up, come to Sebring, and test, because if you've got a weak component in a car, Sebring will find it faster than any other track out there. And so, one, it's great to test on to find that, but a lot of drivers just say, it's nice to have a track with character that if you figure it out, you can use that a little bit. Why not?
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of tracks that, having intimate knowledge of the track doesn't really help you that much, especially some of the newer, most, more modern tracks.
Yeah.
But this place, local knowledge is a big part of it, which is why I'm really impressed with the teams getting the cars ready for this track from Europe and Asia, and the drivers. But you talked about Audi testing here. They wanted to put a lot of time and miles on these components, and people say that the Sebring 12-hour is as tough as the Daytona 24 on the equipment. So.
Yep, absolutely.
This is the place to come. You can do it quick.
You got to do it. And speaking of doing it quick, it's time for the podiums. We're going to beat the rain. Giulio.
Hello, everybody. We are ready for the podium ceremony. We will start with the Huracán Pro-Am class. So let's call on podium. Third place on behalf of Conrad Motorsport, Adrian Amstutz and Giovanni Venturini. Second place for the top speed duo, made up by Juan Bo and Mr. Eduardo Liberati. The winner, Change Racing, Mr. Corey Lewis. Time to hear the national anthem of the United States of America. Io non sento inno.
Sento inno, è la
Time to call in Mr. Alessandro Farmeschi, Chief Operating Officer for Automobili Lamborghini North America. Congratulations to the Conrad Motorsport duo. Third place today, Mr. Adrian Amstutz and Giovanni Venturini. Second place, Top Speed Team, Juan Bo and Eduardo Liberati. And of course, the winner from Change Racing, Corey Lewis. Mr. Hugo da Silva will hand the trophies on behalf of Blancpain. Events manager of Blancpain goes, of course, to Mr. Corey Lewis. Well done, Corey. Time for the official picture, so raise your trophies. Champagne is about to come. Chris Ward is handing the champagne, and he gotta be quick. Congratulations, gentlemen. Please stay within the podium area for the family picture at the end of the other podium and for the interview with the winner. And all is set for the Race 1 Huracán Pro Class. We'll start as usual from third place. We call in the Ogara Motorsport duo made up by Richard Antinucci and Edoardo Piscopo. Second place for the all-Italian duo Loris Spinelli, Daniel Zampieri. Cappello, 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 cappello. And of course, the winner, all the way from Finland, Bonaldi Motorsport driver, Patrick Kujala. Time to hear the Finnish national anthem. Time to hand the trophies. We call for Mr. Stefan Winkelmann, President and CEO of Automobili Lamborghini. Third place for Richard Antinucci and Edoardo Piscopo. Well done, guys. Second place yet for another pair, this time the one made up by Lore Spinelli and Daniel Zampieri. And the winner, Patrick Kujala. Kujala also deserves the prize to be handed by Blancpain events manager Hugo da Silva. Well done, Patrick. Time to raise up the trophies for the picture of this Huracán Pro podium. Raise up your trophies, gentlemen. And champagne is on the way. We thought Kujala was pretty much tired, but not for celebrating. So we call all drivers to the podium. Please, all drivers come to the podium, both Pro-Am and Pro drivers to the podium for the family picture. Patrick, Eduardo, Richard, please to the podium for the family picture, the very last picture for today. We call also for Mr. Da Silva, Mr. Inverni, Mr. Winkelmann, race director, Mr. Galbiati. Giovanni, also your welcome podium. Time to smile. Raise your trophies. And thank you very much, gentlemen. See you tomorrow. Greg, it's up to you.
Thank you very much, Giulio. And again, great job today. Great podium celebrations coverage, and as well the interviews before and after the races. Fantastic stuff. Thank you so much, Giulio. He's one busy guy. He's the PR guy for the European Series, and for this weekend, he's been picking up on a lot of other stuff for us. So, well, that's it. We are wrapped up for today. However, the good news is we've been talking about we get to do it again tomorrow, and we will start off tomorrow morning with the second of the races for the Huracán Am and Gallardo combined race group, and then we will bring home the finish for the second of the races for Huracán Pro and Pro-Am. And we'll, of course, have it for you right here on our global webcast. So thank you so much for joining us. We'll be on air at 9:20 a.m. here on our global web feed. We'll be here at the track and on air locally just for the track itself before that, but 9:20 we'll be up on the web stream. And Spencer, I understand, obviously, you've got some commitments with some of the guys that are running in the Huracán Am and Gallardo race, but hopefully you'll be back for the pro race once again to bring it home for us. Great job today.
I will be back. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure. And, of course, looking forward to working with Spencer on the coverage on CBS Sports Network of the American Series final two rounds and then these world final races. It's going to be special indeed. So join us here on the web, 9:20 tomorrow morning. And for those of you that are going to be here on site, one, nice crowd showed up today. Thank you so much. Bring about 50 of your best friends, each one of you. Let's send this off big here. And the official ceremonies, the VIP grid walk, starts at 9 o'clock, and we'll go racing. Again, it's racing tomorrow, a break in between the two, and then in the afternoon, the award ceremony for the World Finals will be unfolding. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us here on the web, for joining us here at historic Sebring International Raceway. We'll see you tomorrow.